Welcome to In the Living Room on CHRY TV. I am Stephanie Lopez, and today I'm going to be diving into something that has probably touched every one of us at some point, and that is fear. But here's the good news. Fear doesn't have to control you. In fact, with God's help, confronting your fears can be the very thing that transforms your life. So I'm going to be using some Bible references. So when you see this, grab your Bible and let us talk. Maybe the fear of failure, or the fear of rejection, or the fear of the unknown is what bothers you. But we must remember that the enemy uses fear to hold us hostage. But God uses courage to set us free. So by the end of today's episode, you will have some biblical tools and practical steps to face your fears head on. So let us understand what this fear is all about. Fear is a natural emotion, but it can become a spiritual problem when it controls our decisions. For example, you can be afraid for applying for a better job. Maybe you think you're not qualified for this job because you are afraid of rejection. And as a result, you stay in a place God never intended you to remain. You can be afraid of being a public speaker, because you just doubt yourself. Whatever is your fear, you can be afraid of riding a bicycle because you have the fear of riding a bicycle or of driving a car because you think that something may happen to you. You might die in the accident on a bicycle, or you might have a car accident. So fear keeps you stagnant, keeps you in one place. But we must remember in 2 Timothy 1-7, it says, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. So fear is not from God. So we have two different types of fears. We could have healthy fear, which is we caution it by wisdom, what we know, or we can have paralyzing fear, which is sort of a bondage. We resent doing anything in the paralyzing fear because we're just awfully afraid of failure. So let's look at healthy fear or caution. Healthy caution and fear may feel similar in the moment, but they both make you pause. But they come from very different places and they have very different results or outcomes. Let's look at the definition. A wise, measured awareness of potential risk leading to thoughtful action. And it is rooted in wisdom. So we think carefully and plan to overcome something that we are afraid of doing. But if you don't do this, it keeps you alert without paralyzing you. So, for example, when we are about to cross a busy street or any street, we will stop, we will look both ways, not because we're terrified of the cars themselves, but because we know they exist and there is a possibility and we want to stay safe. But when we think of that, we look at a biblical reference to that. And we can look at Proverbs 27:12. It says, the prudent sees danger and take refuge, but the simple keeps going and pay the penalty. And we can think of many things. One of the things I'd like to talk about is riding a motorcycle in especially summertime. I often see these young people. I don't know what goes in their head, but they are riding at excessive speed during a busy traffic, during busy traffic times. And I'm saying, are these young people not thinking that somebody could just easily change lane and bump them off that bike? So we can look at that as an example. But opposing to fear, that we have paralyzing fear. And the definition of paralyzing fear is an anxious, often irrational dread that exaggerates danger and keeps you from moving forward. So if we could look at even the bike ride as an example again, he wants to ride his bike, but he's so afraid that this is going to happen, that he might be bumped off and killed in an accident. But we know that opposing to the other fear, if he rides carefully, he doesn't have to have that fear. So this sort of paralyzing fear is rooted in distrust, maybe for yourself, insecurity, trauma, rather than sound reasoning. It can freeze you and stop you from taking opportunities that limits you or your faith. So another example could be, I wonder if there are any persons like this, refusing to cross a bridge because you imagine it will collapse despite evidence it is safe. Or, and I know we have people who are afraid of heights. They're just afraid that they themselves may fall, even though there's no evidence that that may happen. A good biblical reference would be, for God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of sound mind. And that is in 2 Timothy 1-7. So in short, healthy caution is like a wise friend whispering, look both ways. Think. That's a healthy caution. Look both ways. Think carefully. And fear is like, panic, a voice that shouts, don't even try it. It's too dangerous. Don't even try it. Now you could think of, there's so many, even for myself, there's so many things that I wouldn't mind doing. But I think every one of us has a little fear embedded in them. One fear a lot of people have, even though they have the capacity to do it and the potential, they are afraid of public speaking. Only when they try to later step out and to impact many lives. Are you one of those? Now, fear in itself can limit God's plan for your life. For example, fear can cause you to miss opportunities, broken relationships, and spiritual stagnation. Think about those times when any of these is stopping you. You are afraid of a relationship breaking up. But instead of trying to do something healthy, you attack, you defend, or you want to have a relationship, but you are stopped. There's a spiritual stagnation. You don't know what to do. You keep questioning yourself. Example, a fear of vulnerability can keep someone from forgiving and restoring a relationship. How vulnerable are you? How vulnerable will I be? And so you are afraid to launch out and into this relationship. We can look at some biblical cases, some study cases, where, for example, in Numbers 13 to 14, the Israelites feared the giants in Canaan and missed entering the promised land at that time. If we look at Numbers 13 to 14, let's see if I can find it. Numbers. Okay, you can check that out, Numbers 13 to 14. So sometimes the giants in our life are not physical people as well, but they are debts that hold us down, the money we owe, the promises we made that we can't keep, that keeps us bound. Oftentimes, it's insecurity. We are not sure what will happen if we launch out and do what we want to do. And that is in itself, we are doubting ourselves, self-doubt. So you can think, what are the promised lands have you been avoiding for fear? What are you avoiding because of fear? And I want to come and look. Are you afraid to tell people that you worship God, that He is your all in all, that He is your strong tower? That's something to think about. And if you haven't even started trying out who this God is, try Him, because He will lead you. So God can answer to fears. He can answer to our fears. Let's look at Joshua 1:9. It says, He knows that we are only human, and He knows that we have fear. So I'm sure this is mentioned in the Bible a whole lot of times. If you look up fear in the Bible, you'll see it mentioned everywhere. But Joshua 1:9 says, Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Now, that's powerful words, that if you really embrace those words and walk in His wisdom, you'll be shocked. Another example is in Psalm 56, 3-4. It says, When I'm afraid, I put my trust in you, God. In God, whose words I praise, in God I trust. I shall not be afraid. What can flesh do unto me? So, as I said, I'm going to repeat, afraid, that word is mentioned in the Bible repeatedly. We are afraid of dying. We are afraid of being sick. We're afraid of rejection. All kinds of things we're afraid of. And I want you to think of what are the things that you are fearful of. So some of these are practical steps that we can try to do. It's not easy. It doesn't come easy. But we can try to replace fear with faith through God's promises. We can take small steps of obedience, even when we're still feeling afraid. And each of these points I'm mentioning may be subjective to each individual, because we are all facing different kind of fears. And another thing that we can do is we can surround ourselves with faith-filled voices instead of fear-filled ones. So don't let the enemy keep talking to you. You can't do this. You can't do that. Use the Bible. Search those scriptures. Pray. Ask the everlasting Father for wisdom And I tell you, he'll guide you. So one example is, I don't know if you know any young person, they want to go to college, but they're afraid they are going to be rejected. Or a young person driving a car is afraid of going somewhere because I know us as parents, we don't want our children to go some places because we're afraid of the danger they're in. Or even young men driving cars, and I see this a lot coming from the United States, where young Black boys and girls are harassed by the police. Oh boy, you're afraid that something may happen to them. Or older people, we're afraid of trying new things. We said, oh, we'll soon die anyways. Why do it? Or there's so many things. Even older people, they want to go back to school, but why am I going back to school? It's already too late. So these are some, you just think of the numerous examples that keep us from pursuing the things that will push us forward. So the most important thing then is to identify that fear. Write it down. What am I afraid of? Give a name to it. Because when you name it, it removes the power. Think about that. Write down the fear. Give that fear a name. I'm afraid of da-da-da. I'm afraid of stairs. I'm afraid of my husband leaving me. I'm afraid of death. And move forward to removing that fear. If we look at the Bible, David he openly acknowledged his fears before God. In Psalm 34:4, it said, I sought the Lord, and he answered me and delivered me from all my fears. Another thing is that we have to expose the fear or the lie behind the fear. What's the lie that's keeping us from going forward? What is this lie? You are not capable. You are not good enough. You are not pretty. Whatever it is for young people. And this is something I think I'm going to get some young people to talk with me about what their fears are, because this is important. So one of the things is that fear often whispers, you can't. You can't. Why do you think you can? You can't. But Philippians 4:13 says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. You believe that? I tell you, this Bible has every law, every action, everything in it that can give us strength, that can attack or help us to confront any of our situations. The next thing we can do is we can take faith-based action. You can say, fear is defeated by action rooted in trust. For example, Peter, this is one great one. Peter, stepping out of the boat and walking on water and coming to Jesus. You know that in Matthew 14:29, where, bid me come unto thee. And Peter stepped on water and started walking to Jesus until he looked away. Then he began to sink. And that's what happened. I mean, this is an old story, but it doesn't have, this is just an example of a story. It can be anything. I am going to college. I'm doing well, but as soon as I begin to deviate that attention onto something less important, of course I'm going to fail. And the other thing is, We're going to practice whatever it is daily. So in the case of applying for a job, you go out daily with your resume and walk in faith. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And do what you have to do online. Everything is done online now. So you send your resume out. Don't be afraid. One of the things that I always say to young people I talk with, I always say, listen, speak the truth. Nobody can beat you. Nobody can beat you except the unlawfuls. But nobody can beat you when you speak the truth. Speak the truth. So you're applying for a job and you don't have all the requirements. Don't lie. Speak the truth. So courage isn't the absence of fear when you're speaking the truth, but it's choosing to move forward despite everything else. So now I want you to think of some practical examples. And one of them is mine. You see me talking before you? Even though my past says I worked as a teacher and I'm good in front of the classroom. But when it comes to just putting me on a stage and I have to talk to a whole lot of unfamiliar people, I'm afraid. I'm not that bold. I'm afraid. I don't like public speaking. So if you don't like public speaking and you want to do things like that, do things like even what I'm doing. The more you do it, the more familiar you become, the more brave you come, to realize that, you don't have to be right, because all of us have different ideas and different ways of approaching any topic. And we don't have to be right. If we think we always have to be right, that's a limited factor. That will keep us bound. That is fear. So we're going to, and there are many clubs or many organizations, such as there are many organizations that you can join that will help you to accomplish the goal of public speaking, if that is what you want to do. And that an organization I know of is Toastmasters. I'm a member of Toastmasters, I should say that. So over time, fear will shrink as our skills grow and our faith grow in ourselves. We realize one of the things, as I said, I'm a member of Toastmasters. One of the things I like is the table topics as part of it, where they just call you up and you have to talk on anything. You get 60 seconds, to talk on a topic that you know nothing about. And, that is helping you to talk on your toes, talk impromptu. And I've listened to all the people who talk, and they just talk anything. It doesn't have to relate to the specific topic. And that is one of the things that I admire, I like about that. So next time, I will talk to you about confronting major fears in life, in my life, how I felt, and the turning point on how God used it for my transformation. Or if you have a story and you want to talk about it, you can contact me on the web page where this below this, because we don't have to be in the same place to talk. If your story can help somebody, that is the key. That is the idea about all that I'm doing, is to help somebody to overcome a fear, to move forward in grace and in God's perfect design for your life. So what am I asking you to do? Fear may knock. Fear may come knocking at your front door daily, every day, but you decide whether you're going to let that fear in. I don't have anything to do. I lie in my bed every day. I'm so afraid. This thing called fear? And little by little, it will creep on you. Another encouragement is God is bigger than the what ifs in your mind. Remember, there are going to be times when you're going to be rejected. It's normal. You're not like everybody else. Your opinion and your ideas are not the same as everybody else. So you will be rejected. Are you going to be afraid of being rejected? I mean, how many million people will not reject you for sure? There may be a couple hundreds, but all of them won't reject you. And so again, remember, identify one fear. For this week, identify one fear and pray about it and take a step toward overcoming it. Do that. So my closing scripture is Isaiah 4:10. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. That's the key word for you this week. So again, identify a fear, pray about it, write it down, and take steps to overcoming. Thank you for watching. Thank you for joining me in the living room. I've been on for a while. So if today's conversation encouraged you, please share this, like it, comment just on CHRY TV. And remember, when you confront your fears with faith, you open the door for God to transform your life. Thank you so much for watching, and see you again in the living room. May God bless you.